One of the first videos I ever made, which became my most popular video ever to date, was about the media's portrayal of James Damore's, or should I say, case against Google. It wasn't just about what James Damore said about women in engineering, but more about how the media portrayed what he said, what he wrote, who he was, all of that. I still don't really understand why that video was so popular, but I think I'm definitely not the only person to be suspicious of the media, of journalists. That was 2017. It's 2021 now, and somehow I'm still shocked when I see articles that say blatantly false things, or they do an awful, despicable job at portraying the facts in a non-biased, just honest way. And since then, there's been it's an explosion, an acceleration in the number of cases in America, mostly, of police brutality being used against people under arrest. I don't know if it's for political reasons or simply because many police officers in America now wear a body camera that allows everything that is happening to be videoed and then shared around the internet as soon as it becomes available. But it seems that every week or every other week, sometimes two in a week, as it was this, I think it was last week, there's a new story. Either someone's shot, or they're killed, or they're treated too roughly. And I suppose I should say just up front that I do have some sympathy for the viewpoint that perhaps police officers should not be allowed to use so much force when apprehending a person who's under arrest, a criminal or a suspected criminal. There is definitely room for a discussion on how much force and what kinds of force police should be allowed to use, and there are certainly cases where police go too far. But what I'm talking about now is that the people who make this case are completely dishonest, as far as I can tell, almost entirely. The people who report on these stories, I'm constantly in a state of disbelief at their dishonesty when I find out the real facts of the matter. The way that it's portrayed by the news articles and by people writing about it on social media especially. But those people are usually just sharing information they found from news sources. It's just, they take the most tiny details that are almost insignificant to the case and make that the whole point of the story, and will leave out the broad strokes of what actually happened. And I won't get bogged down in any one case, but there are dozens at this point, examples that I could bring up of stories that you've probably heard of, and you may not have heard what actually happened because the oversimplified, hagiographic on the part of the victim, on the part of the criminal, portrayal of what happened is so widely spread compared to the real truth of it. It's to the point where there are going to be people watching this video who think that I'm a conspiracy theorist because I don't believe it. But I try to keep an eye on myself and my reactions to things, and I was kind of surprised at myself this week because there were two stories that appeared in the news this week that I simply didn't believe. I didn't look into it. There was no further reading because these are just fresh. We haven't yet got the details of either of the cases. The part of my brain just looked at it and just went, okay, well, that's probably nothing, isn't it? And I'll tell you what the stories were. The first one was a UK police officer this time. The police in the United Kingdom and England typically don't carry guns. There are some circumstances that they do, but mostly they're unarmed, in the sense they don't carry a gun, but they often carry a baton. And in this case, this police officer is said to have used his baton 36 times. Was it 34 times? I'm using my phone to film, so I can't use it to look up the story, but I think it was 34 times against a girl who's said to have learning disabilities, and she was black. I'm shocked that the fact that she was black was not in the headline. It was only in the article in most cases. But there is no body cam footage. There are no photos. Well, all that was written in the article is that this police officer first tried to put handcuffs on her, and then when she resisted, he needed to use his baton. I mean, it sounds like he hit her, but the fact that I don't know how you can use a baton without hitting someone, but immediately what my brain is doing is getting to work figuring out, what does it mean to use a baton? How could he have used his baton without hitting her? Because if he hit her, wouldn't they have said that? This is immediately I'm reading between the lines, trying to figure out what actually happened, without even consciously meaning to do so. The other story, I can't quite remember the wording of the headline, but it was something along the lines of 5 far right-wing terrorists have been arrested in a raid. I remember the word raid was used. Further on in the article, it says that out of the 5, one of them was a 16-year-old boy and one of them was a woman. And it came after something to do with a bomb. There was no explosion, but there was some kind of information about a bomb came to light, and that is hinted, I should say, it is suggested that there is a link between that and these arrests. The thing is, there have been far right-wing terrorists, or mass shooters. There have been horrible acts of violence committed by right-wing people in the name of their ideology. And yet my first assumption is to ask what these people did, and to suspect that perhaps they didn't deserve to be arrested and called terrorists. Now, I could be wrong. Intellectually, I know that it's possible that these people were right to be arrested and that they were really planning some awful terrorist attack. That's possible. And yet I don't believe it, because I don't believe anything anymore. Even after the 4 years that's taken place since I first started to notice it with this James Damore business, I think I've only just finally got to the point where I just don't believe it when I read about something like this. If more information comes out about it, I'm willing to admit that I was wrong, but just on the face of it, I don't believe anything I read anymore. And what really worries me is that to get the proper facts of the cases, there are no honest left-wingers who will tell you the full extent of these stories, these highly politically charged stories. No one on the left will talk about the truth behind police shootings and police brutality. And people on the mainstream right won't even talk about it. To find out about what actually goes on, you need to go to the Stephen Crowders and Devin Tracys of this world. And they are not politically neutral. They're obviously putting their own bias into these cases, but they at least present the evidence that they are basing this on, to the point where it is undeniable that there has been a huge cover-up of the details. I just think that if you have a political conviction, if you have an opinion about police use of force, and you believe that police should not have access to these kinds of force, or to this kind of equipment, these weapons, whatever. If you think that, I think that's a valid opinion. But I don't understand why so many. I mean, it seems like all of the people who are campaigning on behalf of this, they need to use dishonesty, or they think they need to use dishonesty to get this point across. If they really believe it, then Then being honest about it should be enough. If there really is a problem, and I'm not saying that there isn't, there could be. I really think that it's possible these people could be right. And yet the fact that they won't even use honest tactics because they believe the truth isn't enough. That's the only thing. That's the only conclusion I can come to, is that they really don't believe that the truth is good enough to make their point, which means that they know that it's not a good point. I think if you have an opinion that is so strongly held that you won't even listen to any information that might contradict it, that you need to misrepresent reality in order to enforce your opinion, then I don't think that's really your opinion. I think you're just saying you have that opinion. I think you're pretending to have that opinion and covering your ears and shouting until people leave you alone. And because the only people who are willing to talk about this, maybe not even honestly, but just to talk about it in a, in any way counter to the widely accepted reality, the version of reality, the only people who will make these arguments are the far right, or the alt-right, or the, I don't even know, the alt-right is such a polluted term, I have to use another word, like the internet right, the meme right. So that if I ever try to get into an argument with someone about any of these stories, it just makes me look like a Nazi, basically. I don't know why I'm making this video. I think everyone watching this probably gets it already. I haven't made a video in a while, and I was just feeling frustrated about this, so maybe I'm just venting. I don't know how much worse this can get, or how long this can continue. And I don't know what comes next. Our political opinions are usually not based on our own experiences of our own lives, going to work and watching TV, and the things that we all experience day to day. Those are not the things that we base our political opinions on. Those are not the things we think about when we're deciding who to vote for. We base our opinions on what we hear about happening to other people, and the general trends that are happening in the country that we hear about. And so if you're willing to just lie about that, if the journalists are just willing to say anything about it, whether it's true or not, or that they're willing to stretch the truth to the absolute limit of what they can say honestly, which is the very least of what they're doing, then what hope do we have? How are you going to form an opinion about how things should be organized, or who should be in charge, if all of your information comes from other people who are lying to you? But that's all I've got to say today. I'm sorry it's been so long since I did a proper video, but I hope you've been catching my live streams where I've been trying to make up for the radio silence. I know they're a bit longer, but you don't have to watch the whole thing. If you only want to watch a 12-minute Poe the Person video, then just watch the first 12 minutes and just turn it off, because probably the most interesting stuff is kind of front-loaded often anyway, so go and check those out if you like. The thumbnails are usually non-standard, so you might be missing them in your timeline. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you again soon, I hope. Please leave your comments below, as always.